Hello.
Hello there.
Joe Diomede, TTRP TV, sitting here at my in this lovely yurt. I'm not in Mongolia. No, I'm in my little village, Mambrun, and there's lots of yurts around this village, and no Mongolians actually. But their influence is well and truly with us. As you saw in the intro shot, that is a yurt, and that was the inside of the yurt. Very beautiful living space. It's round. There's the way Merlin and Emmeline. Emmeline is a visitor. This is Merlin's primary residence, and we're here. You might recognize Merlin. I interviewed him in my backyard on Telemarbrun a year ago, eh?
Almost, like
Yeah.
9 months ago.
Yeah, 9 months ago. So, but now he's installed in our village and in this lovely yurt. And we're just going to talk a little about yurt living, outdoor living, how it changes your life, live in a circular space. A lot of people are used to square corners and all that stuff. And does it change the way you approach life? I don't know. These are the people who know better than I. I live in one of those square type houses. So, Marilyn and Emmeline, welcome to TTRP TV.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
And we'll be probably seeing Merlin again because he lives in a place called Manaska, and it's a very interesting part of the world, a part of my village actually. And we'll go into that in more detail on the next part 2 of the Manaska series.
With pleasure.
With pleasure. Very good. Thank you. So, Emmeline, just quickly, how did you wind up, because you lived in Paris until 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and now you live in the countryside outside of Limoges, and you had been coming, you came here a couple of times, and you were a city girl, and kind of thinking, ooh, could I live in the countryside?
Yeah, definitely.
What made the change?
Well,
Helped make the change.
it's been a while that I really think about living in nature in general. I've been studying ecology and all that. Like that has been very present. But the idea of living in a small space in the woods, probably somewhere, like that place definitely helped with that. And so, for example, the idea of having so many windows that shows you that even if the space is small in itself, the outdoors are huge and are nearly part of the habitat. And so, seeing the light, seeing the donkeys in the morning and,
Right.
Hearing the rain and all that, like that's a very important part of it, I think. And I really, really like it.
Yeah.
So that has been part of what made me,
Part of your
leave.
journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like you say, windows. These are window doors, and as I learned, there's good doors and bad doors to come into. You got to be careful. Some doors have steps, some don't. But they all open, and it is very light and beautiful. I mean, right now we're at about 6:30,
PM,
and the
end
sun's
of the
going
day.
down, and this is the end of the day light coming in. There's light right above the camera as well. Beautiful dome. Up on top. Maybe I'll even do a little dome shot at the end of this interview. So, Emmeline, so it helps you move out, get into the countryside, living in nature, and you are living surrounded by it. And Merlin, when we first met, you were on your bike tour. You were kind of doing a little bit of a bike tour, and you have a background in filmmaking, and you wanted your reason to come down here was to actually meet Nichenko, who we'll meet later on, in a few days maybe, and to live here.
Yes.
And so you made it happen.
Yeah.
We can all make things happen, everybody. You just set that intention. And now from Brittany, northwest part of France, where, is very, very different to the southwest part of France where we are, right here, south central part of France. And Merlin made that move. Why? How? Logistics? Why a yurt? Just a few questions.
Yeah, sure. I'll need you to remind me the second one. It's just,
No
but
problem,
why?
no problem.
First, the why. I think, like many people, it all started during the first lockdown, and just, why am I in a city if there's nothing enjoyable about a city anymore? So it started with that, and I thought, it's just a lifestyle that isn't a good fit for me, city life, and I just played that game for a decade, and
you lived in some Morocco. I mean,
I lived
Casablanca.
in a-
You picked cities, man.
yes, I lived in a 10 million inhabitants city in Morocco, and I think allergic to it. So I downsized to Rennes, which is probably 250,000
Whoa.
inhabitants, so really smaller. Still, it was way too big.
But did it feel like a city? It still felt like a city.
Yes.
Rennes.
Yeah. Small one, really enjoyable one on many levels, but still a city. Still many things that are. It's not my environment, and
Right.
I just came to that conclusion slowly, and I really had a need to put my hands in the ground, in the dirt, to plant, to build, to do things, and I couldn't do that in the city.
Right.
Okay, I don't have enough money to buy a house. I don't want a mortgage. What can I do with that? So I think I started watching some videos about the tiny house movement and minimalism and stuff like that, and I got inspired. And in the end, I'm really far away from a tiny house.
Right.
But
Well, you're not that far away from tiny house. I mean, tiny house is maybe more
I mean, in terms
traditional
of
and square.
aesthetic, etc.
Yes,
and
exactly,
the way,
exactly.
but yeah, the principle is the same, and it's just a small space, just fitting my real needs, and there we meet minimalism
Yes.
approach.
Sure.
So there was a why.
How?
How?
You know,
So-
Brittany here. You know,
Yeah.
I remember the logistics, and besides going into the nightmare of the truck breaking down on the way down with your dad, literally just tell us about like building the yurt in Brittany.
So just I wanted to be closer to nature. I wanted to be closer to the mountains that I really love, and from Brittany, we're really far away from the mountains. Well,
From
quite
the
far
high
away.
mountains here, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you have
the
the,
high
the
mountains.
Black Mountains, and you have a few little
hills. Yeah.
right? That they call mountains.
Yeah, they're really nice, but I like altitude. I
Sure.
like that. I mean, it's really driving me, and so I decided to come to the mountains, and I chose here in Ariège because it's more preserved, because of the people, the mentality, because of ecology, because of many reasons like that. And so I decided to gather what I had in my pocket, and okay, I have that, what can I build with that? And a yurt,
So you had all
weirdly-
this stuff in your pocket.
not that, money.
Money,
And I
yeah.
transformed the money into
Into-
material.
Yeah.
And
Is that everything? Did you do everything up there?
Almost.
Right.
What did I do? I didn't do the outside skin of the the top around because I wanted it to be perfect and done by a professional, etc. Because I had never done that.
Right.
But yeah, I mentioned that project to my dad, and he told me, well, I could help you. It wasn't really clear at the beginning what I wanted. Well, tiny house, nice. I could help you build
Right.
one or something.
Your dad has
But,
a bit of a
yeah.
theater background. You were saying
Yes,
he
like-
built theater sets, so
Exactly.
kind of tapped into that creative.
So
part
and
of-
I
of
work
it.
in that area a little bit. So we know how to improvise with stuff and create. So I'm not a builder, but I can improvise that.
Right.
And so yeah, together we approached that, and I said I don't want a tiny house. I don't want these angles, etc. I'm pretty tall, and it's important for me not to feel oppressed by the
Right,
house, etc.
sure.
So it's fitting my size. And for example, the kitchen counter, it's too high for many people, but I mean, it's my place. It's
This one here. Oh, okay.
yes,
Okay.
and so,
Yeah, oh,
so,
yeah,
so
actually,
for once, I'm not cleaning the dishes like that.
Yeah.
I'm like that, and it's just one thing, but it
Sure.
changes your life.
And the yurt, you got a very high ceiling, so you never feel crouched over. Like even in a tiny house, even if you have whatever a few centimeters above your head, you still feel that.
Oppression.
Am I going to hit my head, or what's going through a doorway? Whereas here, there's as we learned, 3 doorways, but they're only on the outside, and you walk in, and then it's just an open space, small space. What's the diameter?
The diameter is 6.6 meters, so
Okay.
it's 34 square meters
Okay,
on the ground, which is
100 square
Really
feet ish.
yeah,
Americans.
yeah. Which is really enough for me. And
Sure, yeah.
I used to live in a 3 times that size, my last apartment, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. And it's funny because last winter, this winter, it's not really over, but everyone around me was concerned. How's the winter doing for you? Are you too cold, etc.? It's the best winter of my life.
I mean, it's well insulated.
It's well insulated. Of course, there's a wide range of temperatures, and in the morning it's quite chilly. But
Yeah.
you just you just put clothes on for the first half hour, then you do something outside while the fire is on.
I mean, we don't live with central. A lot of people down here, we don't live with central. I mean, us as well. We don't have a yurt, but our house, we use wood. We're very careful with how much wood we burn, and we wake up to a chilly house, and we go out for a walk if it's cold, and then we light a fire later in the day. Sure.
And it's so healthy. I mean, it's really not something that is an effort, and you get used to it.
Yeah.
You really get used to it, and so I'm really in love with that lifestyle so far. And originally, it was a temporary, it was a transition, the yurts, to go somewhere else, to build something, eventually maybe buying land. But I found a great spot. I'm hosted by a fantastic person. And what I learned about that lifestyle is the here and now, the present moment. And that's what matters. And I don't know where I'll be in 6 months. I don't care. It's not that important. And every day I learn more about that and being in that key present moment.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope we all learn that with the confinement. We learned how our rights could disappear. As we learned in Canada recently, your money could disappear if you're on the wrong side of the gun. I mean, there's way too much control right now in this world when we give ourselves over to the systems that are broken and failing us in many ways. So pulling out of those systems and having more control where you live, give you freedom. You burn wood for your heat. You have your water. You have to go collect your water and bring it here, so you're not tied to a water company. There's many things that are tougher, but they give you autonomy. So what's tougher? Is it tougher to work your whole life and think you have a pension and then all of a sudden it's taken away from you because of some government ruling, or is it tougher to maybe put a jumper on in the morning and collect your water? We make those choices.
It's always about time and money. How you manage these two things, and I really feel that I'm the master of my time now, and I managed to bring myself to that position.
Right.
And so money isn't that important anymore. And being off grid is a lot of work. It's not for everybody, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's important for me, for the people around me, so they can see how I live and maybe get inspired. Maybe not live the same way that as I live, but there's another way.
Yeah.
Because we're all plugged to the network.
Yeah, in some way or another. Sure.
Yeah, and it's really important to realize that we always have a choice and we can decide how we want to live, even if that system is telling us there's only one way, and you have very small choices.
Well, I mean, you, like me and Emmeline, in small ways, found this area, and that's what this area is all about, people living differently. When we moved here, because we had been to a couple of different places, eco-villages, and we've been trying to find that space where, again, we could be the master of our time. I always liked being time rich and cash poor, because I felt it always gave me freedom to do what I wanted to do in my life, and our children, and spend time with our children rather than in those young years, running out to make a living, to be there with them. So, Emmeline, you lived in the city. You were a city girl, and now you came here, and you were making your transition. Then you met Marilyn, and you came down here, and you were like, okay. And we have other crises around, and the refugee crisis is a big one. So you've married both of those desires. So tell us a little about your journey from Paris to Limoges, and your change of work. Or is it a change? Were you kind of doing the same thing in Paris?
I was kind of doing the same work with refugees and teaching French, and also just building links between local people and refugee people or asylum seekers. And what has changed is I really find that life in the city for them can be in terrible conditions sometimes, because you have people who sublet to people with, we call them marchands de sommeil, like sleep sellers, thank you.
Right.
And so, that can be very hard.
Like a slumlord, maybe?
Yeah.
Would we say slumlord? Like they rent out too many people in a room, too many people in an apartment. Yeah, we used to call them slumlords in New York. Yeah.
So that's often in terrible conditions, and they often come from really different backgrounds. And so you have this moment of feeling disconnected and feeling alone, and
as a refugee.
Yeah.
So you come from your country, you feel disconnected. You leave. You're looking for asylum. You come to a city, and now you're put into another dire position. Going back is not an option.
Yeah.
Staying is an option, but it's not filling you with joy.
Exactly.
So what did you? So you were feeling
And so with that, I really wanted to create an association that would be doing the same thing, but in the countryside. And around maybe agriculture or around building or something like that. You have a few initiatives like that existing already. And so I was going around the country to, meet people doing that and being like, okay, what are the obstacles? Does it work? How does it work? How can it be even better? And I met an association called La Terre en Partage, which is near Limoges. And so they host people around organic agriculture, and I stayed a few days, and then I was like, I might just move here for a bit. And so I'm kind of a permanent volunteer, so that's why I left the city as well, being like, okay, I want to do that, but in the countryside, in a small space. I'm probably going to build a cabin there.
Okay.
That then will be used by the association.
Like a small house, a tiny house.
Yeah. Like
okay.
a tiny house, like a very.
Watch your
very
head,
tiny.
Merlin, when you go visit.
Yeah, it's probably going to be with very low ceiling, and so that will be also like a first experiment of self-building for me and
Great.
eco-building, and so then I know that I'm going to build mine as well at some point.
In Limoges, so you
not in Limoges, probably somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Limoges is still
transition.
It's still the transition, and I know we're going a little off topic because we're talking about yurts and outdoor living, but the refugees, I guess it does tie in. So now you've seen the refugees in Paris living in these dire conditions. Well, dire, better conditions than what they left, but still maybe conditions
Sometimes
many of us would not like to live in. Yeah. Now in Limoges, in the countryside, what's the feeling with the refugees?
You mean about the way, like we could, for example,
the way they live? Does it change? Like, so you've worked with refugees in the city. Now you're working in the countryside. What's the difference in their spirit coming to France and all of a sudden maybe being involved in an agricultural project and involved outside living? Does it change them?
Well, I can only speak from what I see, but it's going to evolve probably. But apparently there is. They were telling me there's a strong feeling of roots, really, like in all senses, planting seeds and also feeling that they can develop roots in France, in this new country that might be theirs for a time or maybe for a longer time. And so there was that aspect, and there was also the idea that I lost my train of thoughts. It's going to come back. Wait.
That's okay. That's okay.
Wait.
Editing.
Edit. No, edit. This is live. This is live TV. Things happen.
No, but the idea of stability and of family, kind of, they would often use that word of here we have a family in the usual center that hosts asylum seekers. We don't. And so there was that, and also the link with local people, because you have a lot of volunteers coming in and out to teach French, to to receive classes from the asylum seekers as well. And so they were saying that there was this stability that was very nice, and there was a lot of pride as well in saying, okay, can you see this field? It used to be devoid of life because they had tilted the land a lot, and now we are putting a lot of life back, and so there was all this exchange of knowledge in kind of a very small French with words of Dari and words of English and words of everything, and that's a very beautiful thing to see. But I also feel that they are not projecting a life in the countryside or projecting a life in small habitats or with permaculture or else.
Where are they living in Limoges? So in Paris they live in an apartment, so where are they living in Limoges?
There's a big farm. The association is a big farm, really.
Okay.
So they have their room in that farm.
They have rooms in the farm.
Yeah.
Okay, but still nicer than being in a shoved in an apartment with overcrowded in the city. And to touch nature, many of the people in my audience might be city dwellers, and I was a city boy until I got on my motorcycle and started discovering America, and then camping and realizing, whoa, this is different. Started touching nature. It really connects you to the planet Earth we live on, gives you a respect for that nature, lets you live out in the elements, gives you a little bit of a toughness that you might not get in the city. You're, like we said before, with the central heating, same temperature all the time. Sometimes actually life is so out of balance. You you're putting sweaters on in the summer because it's so cold with air conditioning, and and you're taking your jumpers off with the central heating in the winter. So it's almost so out of balance that it's reversed. Whereas when you live in nature, you know the four seasons.
Yeah.
And for these refugees, I'm sure they want to just ground themselves, like you said, root themselves, and planting and seeing the vegetables and trees or whatever they're planting come up and come to life. It's about life, isn't it?
And the
Nature.
therapeutical power of just being
Yes.
connected to nature every day and to the cycle of lights and seasons, and just the feeling rooted in all those ways.
So important.
Yeah, and with many people who just fled from war or things that haunt their sleep every day, and they have this very concrete and profound sense of we are doing something that is right here.
Right.
We're doing it together, and we're doing it for ourselves as well.
Right.
So I think that's a very beautiful project of rebuilding oneself as well, and
Sure.
yeah.
And maybe if their future does hold them going back to their country, those are tools they could bring back to their country,
Yeah.
because obviously a war-torn country is going to need rebuilding from the bottom up. It's going to need to plant the soil. It's going to need to be autonomous and grow food, because people will be devastated financially and in many other ways. And it's a great thing. And the countryside here, for both of you, for me, for everyone who lives in this region, has given us that feeling. So now you've been in this yurt for
6 months, more or less.
6 months. So the feeling changed? Has it changed the way you
Oh yeah, yes,
see
definitely.
life?
And that's really interesting what you say about the migrants, because it's true for anybody. For any one of us, we need to reconnect with the earth, with nature, with everything that is alive around us, and it's almost impossible to do that properly in a city. And maybe you can. I don't know how we can do that as a species, but for me, it was. I just got in touch with my deep inner self, and I think I understand more why I'm alive. I mean, it might seem quite deep, but it's really true. And I think I was kind of in a gray area in the city. I was less enthusiastic, less happy, less alive in general. And every day I wake up, I go outside, I fill my lungs with fresh air. I see the donkeys in the field behind them.
Right.
maybe,
Yeah. No, can't see that.
And,
Got my bicycle, maybe.
Yeah, the bicycle, the cat, the dog, the fish in the pond, and everything. And it's in spring, and nature is it's blossom everywhere. It's just I'm amazed by where I live, which is not here, but on that planet and everything that it gives. And the vast majority of humankind is so disconnected from that, and you can't expect our species to react towards what we are doing to the planet if we don't evolve and reconnect to that feeling that we belong here, we're part of that.
Right. I mean,
And
if you don't know, if you live in a 14-story building and you never touch the earth with your feet, you never smell the hummus, the humus, the hummus as well. There's good hummus in the market, but the beautiful earth and just all of those things. Like I rode my bicycle here today, and I ride my bicycle a lot in this area, and it's really connected me to the area, because you realize it's hilly.
Yeah.
And you realize that those little, you go up in a car and you don't have that same connection. Whereas in the city, most people's trajectories are probably well cyclable. And that would be one way to connect. You get out there, you feel the elements, and it's just about the elements and being out there in the elements and feeling the change of seasons.
There's a notion of comfort as well. And I think
Where?
in our society, and we're aiming to more and more comfort.
Right.
And that's one of our goals, is to thrive, to have more money, to have more comfort, etc. I think this is bad, because the real comfort is not the one that we think. It's not having all these streaming channels and stuff, and having a big couch and having
and appliances and all this.
yeah, or having a room that is heated exactly the same temperature every day, all day long. this is not comfort. This is the opposite of comfort. This is the illusion
Of comfort, yeah.
And so when you go back to nature, even if it's for a hike for 3 hours every week or something like that, you feel that discomfort. And when you go back, you realize that that comfort isn't really the one that I want. For example, I don't have running water in my yurt. I don't have a shower right here. If I want to take a shower, which is every 2 or 3 days, I go to a shower and it's 10 minutes walking away. And I appreciate the shower so much.
Sure. Yeah.
Who can say that in a city when even if you're not that
Well,
rich,
it's the opposite. Like you said, it's the opposite. In the
It's
city,
just
if your
a
shower doesn't
shower.
work, you're on the phone. Hey, my
Yeah,
hot water's off.
exactly.
You know, what's going on? You're across, and that's because it's
exactly.
been out for 20 minutes or an hour.
And I even appreciate deeply the fact to wash myself with a bucket of water, and it is great as well. I mean, living your comfort is the best way to discover the real comfort and what you need, etc. And being stronger and being healthier, and
Sure.
the start of everything.
Well, like we said, you had your bicycle tour, and then you went on a hike with your friend during that bicycle tour. And me with my motorcycle, that then when I slowed down to the bicycle, it was all that connecting. And Emmeline, you left the city, you went to Limoges, and you came here, and it was like, yeah, because are you a city?
No, well, I'm half, but
Okay.
and the traveling. I think you both said things about like the comfort. I think the backpacking or
Yes.
the bike or that's also something we all discovered. I think the idea of taking some of all the illusion off and realizing what a shower is or what a crispy morning is.
Yeah.
And I think something you mentioned as well is time. For me, here, the biggest beauty of this place is the relationship to time.
Yes.
Because even when one tried to, in the city, you still have, ways to be connected to nature. You have beautiful initiatives of
Parks.
and city ecology
Sure.
initiatives and farming and all that. But still, here, the connection to how the sun rises at a different time every day, or how the blossoms, bourgeons, c'est blossoms?
Yes. Blossoms,
How the blossoms change, with each day that passes.
Yes.
And that's a crazy difference, I'm realizing things I had never seen, where does the wind come from today?
Right.
What
And
is...
where's the prevailing wind? So
Yeah.
we get most of our weather from here. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why we build the yurt with a small window there, big windows here.
Yeah.
And we just do these things naturally when you live in nature, even in the countryside, when you travel around France or wherever you're living, and you see country dwellings are built with way more respect to nature, whereas in the city, it's just about airspace and can you build up, and then like you say, you get up 6 o'clock in the morning to catch your train at 7:30. It does. I mean, of course, when you finally walk out of your apartment, you see something different. But if you're doing that every day, your cycle is not in tune with the cycle. We've just coming out of winter and we hibernated.
Yeah.
I'm busy now. People are getting their bikes fixed and they're coming to my house. But in the winter, no one's riding bikes, and that's cool. We hibernated. We just. My work was chopping wood and keeping warm, and getting the house ready for when the spring was going to explode into work, and then the summer we hibernate again. It gets too hot and disappear on our bikes or whatever, and you're going to disappear here with the nature growing everything you planted. Then it's time to harvest in the autumn. It's just like this beautiful cycle.
And there's something about the city life I think about listening to you. Most of us in the city, we only think about when we're going to escape next. A weekend,
Right.
holidays, something, just going to see your stepmother, I don't know what. And I don't have that feeling here. I mean, it's the real home. It's not just a place that is convenient for me to raise kids, go to work, anything. It's just a place where, for me, it is right to be for an indefinite period of time.
Right. It's not like, I'm going to go away.
Yeah.
I am away.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But I'm just deciding sometimes to leave, and we are close to the mountains, and if we climb that hill, we can see them. But I like not to see them, and sometimes choose to go up the hill or take my bike and now I'm gonna open. I'm in my nest, my nature nest, and now I'm gonna explore, and it's a whole different relation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said in the beginning of this talk, you said about coming down here in the beginning of lockdown, and lockdown for us here was a whole different. Not here, but just here in general in this area was a whole different thing because we lived in beautiful nature. We were still able to go out for walks, and there was crazy times with paper. There was a lot of crazy times. We were able to skirt a lot of those things here as well. But Angie and I left France for the first time 3 weeks ago. We went to Spain for 5 days.
2 years after.
And for 2 years, and I'm a guy, I go to New York, and I used to go to England, and I, get on my bike and do some tours. But it was like I rode my bike around here. I did some bike tours in those last 2 years, but literally cycled from my house into a different region of France, into another different region, the Basque Country, and I've done, and we just could do it. You don't have to get on a plane and get it, say, oh, my vacation, I can't wait for my vacation. Isn't it lovely that life is the other side? We flip it. Like you said, life is reversed. Before we were talking about the illusion and everything. Well, here, it's, maybe I'm going to go to the city, or maybe I'm, you plan something, but you live your life in the cycles of nature, and it slows you down. And you're not tapping an alarm clock every morning, getting up and saying, this is what I have to do. And that's, I know it's a very privileged position, but we've all made choices here.
We've made really rough choices. And I think for most people who are still in the city or with a day job, it's really hard to think, I could do that as well. But it's just, at one moment you just choose, okay, I want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And you see what you have, what you can do, and you deal with that. And you move forward with that. And I would just like to say to your audience that a year ago, I was in the city, and probably like you, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
A year ago.
Yeah,
and it seems like I'm here forever.
Yeah. And between us, I mean, I don't know how many, but I've lived in Nagoya, Japan, city of whatever, 5-6 million. I lived in Melbourne, Australia. I lived in New York. I lived in LA. He's lived in Casablanca. Did you live in Paris?
No, I avoided that.
Avoided Paris. Emmeline,
Buenos
Paris,
Aires. Yeah.
Buenos Aires. So
Huge
between
ones,
us, we have quite a few cities in different countries, and to appreciate the city life. And I do love going into a city, seeing that humanity and being surrounded by. For me, it's an explosion of humanity. But even after a day now, I just do feel the lack of nature. You're walking on concrete, or you're riding, and there's a slight smell of petrol from the cars or whatever it is, and it's a different feeling to be living in that every day. How was when on closing, Casablanca for you was a real turning point in your life, wasn't it? Because you went there following the film industry. You thought, hey, this is my trajectory,
my career,
and then
my goal.
What happened? So you went to like an African city of 10 million. So you threw yourself in pretty deeply. What happened there?
Well, I think I was ignorant when I didn't think about the consequences of. I just went there, and I'm really happy I did that because I discovered myself deeply. And after 3 years, I learned my job, which is being a filmmaker and an actor sometimes. And end of the cycle. And I think I have 3 years long cycles generally.
Right. That's good.
I observed that.
Yeah, we all have cycles, yeah.
And so after 3 years, I need to leave there. I'm not happy anymore, which is fine. But let's go where I find happiness. And then it was traveling for 2-3 years.
Right.
And now it's trying to plant some roots in the ground and trying to understand what is the essence of life for me and of happiness, and which is a really blurry goal that we all have, but we don't really know how to achieve. It's just like observing. I'm really into permaculture lately, and I think I'm going to stay in permaculture. And there's that idea of taking your time, taking 1 year to observe nature before you plant anything, and go with the flow. Yeah, as you say somewhere.
What a beautiful way to end it. So there we go with the flow, and we all follow that flow and wound up here in a certain way. Emmeline is she touches base a couple of times. I met her a couple of times here already, and Merlin is my neighbor. So it's a 3-year cycle. I got another 2.5 years, and I'm sure and who knows what happens. I'm a nomad as well, deep down, and we're all. everyone out there, you can make a choice. You can change your life. We all can do it. We've done it. We're not. None of us are special in any other way, and other than the fact that we're human beings and we are all special. Everyone out there watching this, 7 billion people on this planet, we're all special. We all could do something, and some of us have the privilege of living in countries, living in places where we're not, being forced into being refugees or being in awful circumstances. And I just want to give a prayer and for people right now who are suffering, and we know those countries and those places where there is a lot of suffering right now. And I think if all of us touch nature, our politicians, if they didn't grow up in these political world and families where they're so out of touch, they travel in these big entourages of people and airplanes and hotels, and we're losing touch. Our political elite is, unfortunately, that's what it is. It's no longer the guy who was the lumberjack who became the president. It's like all these leaders we see are sons of leaders and sons of leaders. So they grew up in this distorted view of the world, and this is why we have all these distorted things happening on our planet right now. And I think we all need to get back to nature, and let's all start. Anybody listening to this, do it.
And appreciate everything you have every day. And if I may,
yes,
I would like to propose an image to finish that moment together.
Yeah, it's fine.
So if I can come here. This is what I'm looking at every evening through my a bit dirty window. Just watching nature. And anywhere you are, you can watch nature, so do it.
Wow. What beautiful way to sign off TTRP TV with the episode on yurts and living and outdoor living. Thank you, Merlin. Thank you, Emmeline. And thank you, Sunset. Thank you, Nature. Thank you, Earth. Bye.
Every night,
Exactly.
Yeah. What is work?
Maybe you don't have it, maybe no work.
Yeah.
No work.
And